Have you ever promised yourself that tomorrow would be the day everything finally changes? Tomorrow you wake up earlier. Tomorrow you become disciplined. Tomorrow you start working on your goals with full focus and unstoppable energy. In that moment, the future feels exciting. You imagine a stronger version of yourself, more productive, more confident, more in control of life. But then tomorrow arrives. The alarm rings. Motivation feels weaker. The plan suddenly feels heavy. The big goals that looked inspiring yesterday now feel exhausting. So you delay it, just for today. You tell yourself you will start next week, next month, or when the timing feels right. And slowly, something dangerous begins to happen. The dream stays alive in your mind, but your actions stay the same. Days pass, weeks pass, months pass. You watch other people move forward while you feel stuck in the same place. Not because you are incapable, not because you lack intelligence or talent, but because something inside you quietly resists change. This is the hidden struggle almost nobody talks about. Your brain is not designed to love big change. The human mind is wired for safety and comfort. When you set huge goals, your brain immediately senses pressure. It sees a giant mountain instead of the next step. That pressure triggers stress. Stress creates resistance, and resistance slowly drains motivation. This is why people buy gym memberships with excitement and stop going after 2 weeks. This is why notebooks are filled with ambitious plans that never turn into real action. This is why so many intelligent, capable people live far below their potential. Not because they lack ambition, but because the path they choose feels too overwhelming to follow. When change looks massive, the brain protects itself by avoiding it. It whispers quiet excuses that feel logical in the moment. You're tired today. You can start tomorrow. You need a better plan first. Those thoughts seem harmless, but repeated enough times, they slowly destroy progress. Before you realize it, life becomes routine. The same habits repeat. The same comfort zones tighten around you. Years pass while the version of yourself you imagined never truly appears. But what if the problem was never your discipline? What if the real problem was the way change was presented to your brain? What if transformation didn't require massive effort, extreme motivation, or sudden breakthroughs? What if the secret was something so small that your mind wouldn't resist it at all? There is a philosophy that quietly solved this human weakness decades ago. A method built on a simple but powerful truth about human psychology. Instead of demanding giant leaps forward, it focuses on the smallest possible improvement. Just 1% better, not tomorrow, not next month, just today. One tiny step forward that feels almost effortless. One small action that the brain does not fear. At first, it seems insignificant, almost too simple to matter. But when repeated every day, something extraordinary begins to happen. Momentum starts to build. Confidence begins to grow, and the person you once imagined slowly becomes real. Because the most powerful transformation in life never begins with massive change. It begins with a single, small step that you are willing to repeat again tomorrow. That single small step may feel almost invisible. It may feel too easy to matter. Your mind might even question it. A voice inside you might say, "How could something this small possibly change my life?" But that question comes from the same mindset that keeps people stuck. The world has trained you to believe that progress must be dramatic, that success must look explosive, that real change only counts when it is big enough for others to notice. Yet the truth about human growth is very different. Real transformation rarely begins with a massive leap. It begins with something so small that your brain does not resist it. This is where the philosophy of constant improvement becomes powerful. Instead of forcing yourself to become a completely different person overnight, you focus on becoming just a little better today than you were yesterday. Just 1%. 1% sounds almost meaningless. It feels small enough to ignore. But that is exactly why it works. Your brain does not see 1% as a threat. It does not trigger stress or fear. It does not activate the resistance that normally stops you before you begin. Instead, it quietly accepts the action. Reading a single page feels manageable. Writing a few sentences feels possible. Exercising for 5 minutes feels easy. Improving one small skill today does not feel overwhelming. The mind allows it. And the moment action begins, something powerful starts happening inside your brain. Each completed action sends a signal that says progress is happening. The brain releases small bursts of reward chemicals that reinforce the behavior. Confidence grows in subtle ways you may not even notice at first. You begin proving something important to yourself. I can follow through. I can improve. I can show up again tomorrow. These small pieces of evidence slowly change how you see yourself. The process feels quiet. There are no dramatic breakthroughs, no sudden transformations that shock the world. Instead, something deeper is forming beneath the surface. Consistency. Consistency is one of the most powerful psychological forces in human behavior. When the brain repeats an action often enough, it begins to treat that behavior as normal. The effort slowly decreases. What once required discipline begins to feel natural. This is how habits are born, and habits are what shape a life. A person who improves by just a tiny amount each day eventually becomes someone entirely different. Not because of one powerful moment, but because of hundreds of small moments stacked together. While others wait for motivation to appear, the person practicing small improvement quietly builds momentum. And momentum changes everything. When progress feels manageable, you return to it again and again. Each repetition strengthens the next one. Each small action removes a little more resistance. Soon the process begins feeding itself. Action creates confidence. Confidence creates more action. Progress becomes visible, even if only slightly at first. What once felt impossible begins to feel within reach. The most surprising part is how quickly this quiet system begins to reshape your life. Not through pressure, not through burnout, but through steady movement forward. And once that movement begins, something extraordinary becomes clear. You do not need massive motivation to transform your life. You only need a system that makes progress impossible to avoid. A system like this may feel slow at first. That is the part most people struggle to accept. The world has conditioned you to expect fast results, quick transformations, instant proof that your effort is working. When that proof does not appear immediately, doubt begins to whisper again. You start wondering if the small effort even matters. You question whether those tiny improvements are doing anything at all. The progress feels invisible, almost like nothing is changing. But this is where something important is happening beneath the surface. Human progress rarely moves in straight lines. It grows quietly, almost secretly, before it ever becomes visible. The early phase of improvement is always the hardest to trust because the results are still forming inside you. Your brain is strengthening new pathways. Your habits are slowly shifting. Your focus is sharpening. Your discipline is building layer by layer. None of it looks dramatic yet, but every small action is stacking on top of the last one. Think about what happens when a drop of water falls on a stone. One drop does nothing. 10 drops change nothing. Even 100 drops seem meaningless. But thousands of drops, repeated long enough, can carve through solid rock. Your small daily effort works the same way. Each improvement may feel insignificant in isolation. Reading a page today does not make you an expert. Practicing a skill for a few minutes does not make you a master. Showing up for a short workout does not instantly transform your body. But those actions are not meant to impress anyone today. They are meant to accumulate. Every repetition builds a small advantage over yesterday. Every day adds another layer of skill, discipline, and clarity. Over time, those layers begin connecting with each other, and then something remarkable begins to happen. Momentum. Momentum is one of the most powerful forces in human behavior. At the beginning, progress requires effort. You must push yourself to start. You must remind yourself why it matters. You must overcome small resistance again and again. But as the habit grows stronger, the effort begins to decrease. The action that once felt difficult becomes routine. The mind no longer debates whether to do it. It simply moves forward because it has become familiar. Momentum begins carrying you. What once felt like discipline now feels like part of your normal life. The actions repeat themselves without constant motivation. Improvement becomes automatic. This is the moment where the compounding effect starts accelerating. Your 10 minutes of focus becomes 20. Your small practice becomes real skill. Your short effort becomes meaningful progress that others can finally see. People begin noticing the change. They see the discipline, the growth, the results. To them it appears sudden. They think something dramatic must have happened. But you know the truth. Nothing explosive created this change. It was built through quiet consistency. Through hundreds of small decisions made when nobody was watching. Through tiny improvements that seemed invisible at the time. And once momentum takes hold, something powerful becomes clear. Continuing forward becomes easier than stopping. When continuing forward becomes easier than stopping, something deeper begins to shift inside you. It is no longer just about improvement. It becomes about identity. This is where real transformation happens. Most people spend their lives chasing goals. They set targets, create plans, and imagine the moment when everything finally changes. But goals by themselves are fragile. They depend on motivation, and motivation rises and falls like waves. Some days you feel powerful and ready to conquer everything. Other days, even the smallest task feels heavy. When progress depends only on motivation, consistency becomes impossible. But when progress begins shaping your identity, everything changes. Every small action you repeat sends a quiet message to your brain. It becomes evidence. Proof of the kind of person you are becoming. When you read a little every day, the mind begins to believe something new. It no longer sees reading as a task. It starts to see you as someone who learns. When you train your body consistently, even in small ways, the mind records that effort. It begins to accept a new truth about you. You are someone who takes care of your strength. When you show up daily to work on your purpose, even for a short moment, your brain registers something powerful. You are someone who follows through. These signals may feel small, but they slowly build a completely new self-image. And identity is one of the strongest forces that drives human behavior. People naturally act in alignment with the person they believe they are. A person who believes they are disciplined behaves differently from someone who believes they lack discipline. A person who sees themselves as focused naturally avoids distractions more easily than someone who sees themselves as scattered. Your beliefs about yourself quietly control your actions. This is why the smallest improvements matter so much. Each one is a vote for the person you want to become. Each repetition strengthens the identity you are building. At first, the evidence is small. You may still doubt yourself. Old habits may still whisper in your mind, but every time you repeat the action, the signal grows stronger. You begin collecting proof that you are capable. Proof that you can follow through. Proof that growth is part of who you are. Eventually, the balance shifts. Instead of asking yourself whether you feel motivated, you simply act because it matches your identity. The behavior stops feeling like effort. It becomes your normal way of living. You no longer fight yourself every day. You no longer rely on bursts of inspiration. The routine carries you forward because it reflects who you believe you are. And this is the quiet power of consistent improvement. It does not just change what you achieve, it changes who you become. The disciplined person you once admired begins looking back at you in the mirror. Not because of a dramatic breakthrough, but because hundreds of small actions slowly rewrote the story you believed about yourself. And once your identity changes, something extraordinary happens. The progress that once felt difficult begins to feel inevitable.